Hey dudes, today we're talking about every red card that appears in the Homelands expansion. Also, my head is better now, which is exciting, but let's get into it. All right, we're on to the red cards, and our first one is a common. This is Alaban's Tower. It's an instant that costs 1 and a red. Target blocking creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn. All right. Well, first off, this is a pretty reasonable card as far as like power level, I guess, kind of. I have two or potentially three main issues with a card like this. So first off, I really don't like how much we are rewarding blocking. It's already really good. Like there is banding in this set. So blocking kind of doesn't it feels to me like we don't need to be turning stuff in this direction any more than it already is. And my second problem is that not just this set, but in this set especially, there's just so many cards where they feel the need to tell you exactly when you can play it. This is 2 mana for an instant that gives +3/+1, kind of comparable to Giant Growth, but it already costs twice as much mana and doesn't do as much. Giant Growth is +3/+3. This is the same offensively, sort of, but not quite the same defensively. Like this won't stop a lightning bolt unless you were a 3/3, I guess. It's not a problem and even helps kind of define the color pie a little bit, right? Saying red can do this, but it's not quite as efficient as green at pumping power, which is fair and fine, I think. But I really don't like saying target blocking creature. This is unnecessary. This isn't a balance change. This is a restriction on when you can play it. It doesn't like yes, it does affect the balance of the card because it is less versatile. The card was perfectly fine. It's if it was just target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn, this card would be fine. It wouldn't be super strong, but it wouldn't be awful. This literally can only be used on a blocking creature, which means that you really can only use it while you're blocking, unless for some reason making one of your opponent's creatures stronger is better for you. That's not going to happen very often. So it really limits when you can use this, and that's not like that doesn't ask strategic decisions of you. That just tells you when to do the thing. Balancing in this way, I think, it is just incorrect for a game like this. A game whose purpose is to like make decisions. I can understand why people looked at this set and felt like that the game sucked, because it kind of does. There's like what's the meaningful decision here, right? Like what do you look at this card and because you can't decide, okay, is this better for me to use offensively or is this better for me to use defensively? It's not necessarily that complicated of a decision, but it is a decision to some degree, and it's a meaningful one. Being able to misplay cards means that you are able to win and able to lose. My point is it's very structured on when it can be used, and I don't like cards like that. Find some other way to make them balanced, but also like you can ease off the pedal a little bit. These cards don't need to be this bad. And I guess my third kind of complaint with it isn't really a complaint, but I don't understand. Like, it's a tower and it gives a bunch of offense, and I don't know. I guess like high grounded shit, sure, but I don't know. It's fine. Like, I don't particularly care that much about the story of cards, but this one does kind of confuse me, and I figured it was worth mentioning because that's one area that most of these cards are kind of really strong in. Uh, Alaban's Tower was illustrated by Jeff A. Menges, and the art is really nice. This one is cool. I like it. Looks really cool. And this one is also awesome. I really like the kind of the contrast, I guess, literally, between these two. The black glowing with the magic being cast, very cool. The art on these is awesome. I really appreciate the art, but the card itself is, I don't know. I guess it's just a good example of like the issues with this set. At least some of them. All right, our next common is Ambush. Ambush is an instant. It costs 3 and a red, and all blocking creatures gain first strike until end of turn. This is fine. It's not that great, and it speaks to the issues I have of like telling the player when they can do things as a form of balance, and making blocking stronger, which disincentivizes attacking. I guess I can understand it because this is also the time when aggro strategies where people were figuring out, hey, if I just play a bunch of like 1/1s and 2/2s and just run them over by, playing one color so I'm never color screwed, Like that strategy was really, really strong against people playing starter decks and shit. So I can understand why they felt that like just rush attacking was so powerful. But within the game engine, it's kind of not. I mean, it can be, but control was really good too, right? Yeah, I guess I don't really have much to say on ambush. I think ambush is fine. It's not really an exciting card either way. Anyway, this was illustrated by Alan Rabinowitz, and the art's really nice. I think it looks cool. That's really all I have to say about this, though. Then we have Ambush Party. All right. Ambush Party is also a common. This is a 3/1 that costs 4 and a red. It has first strike, and Ambush Party can attack the turn it comes into play on your side. This is pretty sick. This card is at least 2 mana too expensive, and probably 3 mana too expensive. But I really like the design of this one. This one is pretty cool. It is a little weird to do Ambush and then Ambush Party in the same set. Like, you have 25 red cards. The naming conventions could have been a bit better in this set, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I like the design of this card. I like aggressive cards. I like cards that encourage people to attack and encourage people to be like, okay, well, they're gonna do something early, so I should have removal or something. 5 mana just feels too much for this. It's a pretty solid card. And the first strike does mean that something has to survive it to kill it, so it's gonna be hard. But a wall with 1 power could do it, probably. I like this card. I think it's interesting. It's not really too much to say about it. I feel like, take a mana off of it, and it's pretty interesting. Take 2 mana off of it, and it's fucking sweet. Ambush Party was illustrated by Mark Poole, and I'm a big Mark Poole fan. This one's pretty cool. I enjoy it. He's brought back some characters from previous cards, which is nice. Very cool. And this one is also really awesome. Personally, I like the other one just a little bit better, but either one I would be perfectly fine running. They're both really nice to look at. But yeah, that's Ambush Party. It's not terrible. Alright. Next we have Onziran Runes. Onziran Runes is a rare. It is an enchantment that costs 2 and 2 red mana. Choose a creature type. Creatures of that type do not untap during their controller's untap phase. This is pretty sweet if you get it in limited. Depending. There's only so many creature types, right? So even if you like throw this down relatively late and only hit 1 or 2 bigger creatures that you can't really deal with, this is pretty solid in limited. Outside of limited, they're like creature synergies are starting to exist, and casually people are building those kind of decks, but like none of that stuff is showing up in tournaments. And on top of that, like at this point, creature types are just all over the fucking place. Yeah, like it's fine. I can even see why this saw a little bit of tournament play, right? Because at the end of the day, if there's a 5 or 6 mana thing that is just like that you can't deal with for whatever reason, like Isan Shade, you throw this down and what was he? Legend? Yeah, he's Legend. So at the time he was Legend. You throw this down and say Legend. Well, he blanks out your lightning bolts, your swords to plowshares, and your terrors. So like, take that, motherfucker. This is niche. It's definitely pretty cool. Not really a fun or exciting card. Not really a card that like I think casuals would super like, but maybe they would. I think it depends. If you're tired of getting run over by your friend's goblin deck, this is pretty cool too. Anyway, let's see what else. Yes, Anaba Ancestor. This is a cool one. This is a rare. It is a 1/1 ghost that costs 1 and a red. You can tap. Target Minotaur gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So let's talk about errata a little bit more. As you can see, this is originally a summon ghost. Now, was this a summon ghost because they didn't want it to be able to tap itself to make it a +2/+2? Keep in mind, during the rules at this point, tapped blockers didn't deal damage. So that kind of balances itself anyway. If like you block, tap yourself to give it +1/+1, and then you survive a 1/1, you don't kill that 1/1. So I fail to see why that's an issue to begin with. But maybe it was not intended, like maybe that wasn't part of it. They just didn't want this to get boosted by Minotaur stuff, or they specifically wanted it to be a ghost and not a Minotaur. Whatever. Now this is a Minotaur, so like it works with the Minotaur shit, but also the errata now says another target Minotaur, so you still can't tap it itself, which, you know, that's good, because that would be too broken, especially now that tapped blockers do deal damage. It's a 2/2 for 2 mana, holy shit. That being said, like, this one not being a Minotaur actually doesn't bother me all that much. I think it's a little dumb, and I think I can see why people would be upset about it. but this one makes more sense to me than the next one. So we'll continue this rant when we talk about the next card. That being said, I don't really have much else to say about this. It's fine. It's not good. It's a 1/1 for 2 with an ability that, like, one, you need to be tribal anyway in a set that also released tribal hate. But yeah, I guess I really don't have anything else to say about this one. So we'll move on to the next one so we can complain about the whole summon ghost and summon other things issues. This was illustrated by Anson Maddox. I love the art. It's very cool. Anson does great work. This is very neat, kind of unsettling in such a cool way. But yeah, interesting card. So I think that this is the card that people should point to and say, what the fuck is this? All right, so this is a common. This is Inaba Bodyguard. This is a 2/3 bodyguard that costs 3 and a red, and it has first strike. So it's a 2/3 for 4 mana with first strike. That's not efficient. This does not need to cost that much, but that's not even the issue. The issue here is why is this a bodyguard? Like, look at this card. The art is of a fucking minotaur. The flavor text says not all minotaurs are tribal. Some are freelance. So, like, why are we doing summon bodyguard? This is just ridiculous on its face. And to be fair, bodyguard is a creature type at this point. Like, this is not the first bodyguard. But my point is that they might, like, actually have a legitimate reason for wanting to use the bodyguard creature type. And I do believe at this point you couldn't use multiple creature types on a card. Or at least they didn't. So there might have been a real, like, well, which one should it be? But if that's why this is a bodyguard and not a minotaur, they should have scrapped this card entirely. Don't have a minotaur bodyguard that in a set with a bunch of minotaur shit and then be like, yeah, also you can't didgeridoo this out, and also, yeah, it doesn't get, you can't give it +1/+1. And on top of that, I also don't understand why this needs to be a bodyguard, because at this point, like, the bodyguard cards, they, like, take damage for you. If you would be damaged, it instead goes to them. And this doesn't have that kind of effect or anything like that. So, like, why isn't it Minotaur Lancer or something like that? It has first strike. Obviously, all of this is stupid nitpicks, but this is stupid. This shouldn't have been like this, I don't think. This set just feels like they don't give a shit about the customer experience, quite honestly. Like, the lore is really good, but it feels like that's the only thing they care about. I guess that's all I have to say about this. It's a Minotaur now. It got errata. Illustrated by Anson Maddox. I really like the art. This one is hysterical. Yeah, I really, really like the art in all of these, but it should be a Minotaur. Anyway, I suppose let's move on to Inaba Shaman. This is a 2/2 Minotaur that costs 3 and a red, and you can pay a red and tap it, and Inaba Shaman deals 1 damage to target creature or player. You know what? All right. I will complain about the red mana for the ability, but I guess it's fine. Especially, like, because again, it's probably a story-based decision. If you look at the flavor text, it's shit-talking how bad the Inaba are at magic, so I can buy the conceit of, oh, it's a prodigal sorcerer, but it's like, you have to put more in to get the same amount of magical effect of it. And it's also a 2/2, so, like, it's less feeble than the old prodigal sorcerer. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've talked myself around to thinking this is pretty okay. It does feel a little bit overcosted. I think you could have just still knocked a mana off of this. I think you could have said it's a 2/2 for 3 mana, maybe make it 1 and 2 red then. I think in that case it still gets across what you're trying to get across. But yeah, this card is fine. This card is pretty cool. It's not strong, but I like it. I think it's interesting, and I think it's good for a more kitchen table or, like, limited experience. And Inaba Shaman was illustrated by Anson Maddox. I like the art. This one's pretty cool, and this one is very similar, also pretty cool. Just a kind of a different perspective, but pretty much the same image. There really isn't much here to talk about. But this card is fine. Alright, next we have Inaba Spirit Crafter. This is a rare. It is a 1/3 Minotaur. They cost 2 and 2 red mana. All Minotaurs get +1/+0. Fantastic. Wonderful. I guess the interesting thing about this is it powers itself up, which is, I guess, okay, fine. Maybe that's where the extra mana comes from. I still think it could be a little better, but whatever. I guess this one isn't so bad as far as, like, I mean, it is bad. The card is bad, but the hesitancy on making this good, I think, is a little bit more justifiable than a lot of these. And at least this is a pretty open design. I do find it really interesting that all of the Minotaurs in this set are red except for one that's blue. So, like, all Minotaurs at this point are red blue, and building a red blue deck is pretty challenging. If you want to do enemy colors, you have the original duels and City of Brass, and that's like all you have. Everything in this set does not feel well thought out from like a mechanical or playability aspect. And I think that's just the major criticism you can make of this set, is that a lot of these pieces just don't really work, and they don't work together, and it incentivizes you to do things that are actively bad in the game. And I don't think any of this is intentional. I don't think like the people that built the set were like, fuck these Magic players, we're gonna ruin their fucking day. I just think they didn't really know how the game worked. But again, a lot of these cards are cool and interesting, and I like the Minotaur idea. I just think they fumbled it. I guess that's all I have to say on Naba Spirit Crafter. Also illustrated by Anson Maddock. Anson did great on the Minotaurs. They're funny, they're cool looking. They're, his style, which I appreciate. But let's move on to Chandler. Chandler is a common legend. Wow. A lot of Chandlers around. Common. What? Crazy. Anyway, Chandler is a 3/3 summon legend that costs 4 and a red, and you can pay 3 red mana and tap Chandler to destroy target artifact creature. This is actually surprisingly fine from a limited aspect. So there's like 4 or 5 artifact creatures in this set, and all of them are common, or at least most of them are common. The point is that in a limited environment, you actually would see quite a few artifact creatures, and they would be pretty desirable even at common, just because anyone can cast them. So like if you are trying to do some 4 or 5 or even 3 or even 2 color deck, just because that's the nature of draft, the artifact creatures are going to smooth that over for you. Granted, 3 red to activate this is a tall ask, so you'd have to be pretty red for this to be good, but this is definitely something that in limited specifically could be interesting in this set. That being said, like it's certainly not a great card. It is a 3/3 for 5 mana, which is about on rate in this set. It also maybe wouldn't be the worst idea to grab these and the artifact creatures, and then just to either not run these or kind of hate draft it, which is kind of funny to think about. I'm not saying Chandler is good, but I do think that there is some use to this in this draft specifically, which is kind of funny in its own way. Outsider draft, this is just like really bad. If you wanted to do, like, there are better cards to do this kind of thing. But yeah, that's Chandler. Illustrated by Douglas Schuler. The art's fantastic. Super funny card. Hilarious. That's all I got about it. Hey, it's Dwarven Pony. Dwarven Pony is a 1/1 summon pony. Costs a red mana. You can pay it red and tap it, and target dwarf gains Mountain Walk until end of turn. Fantastic. So I guess that's kind of interesting. They printed dwarfs pretty early on. They didn't really make a whole bunch of them. And then with Lord of the Rings and a couple other things, there are some more dwarfs around, some of which are pretty good. So this is kind of funny. It's not great. In this limited specifically, it's okay, right? Like if you're playing against someone who's red and you're running dwarfs, this still feels like too much work for what you're getting, personally, but I guess. It's funny. I don't really have any criticism of this card because it's not awful. It's fine, and it's kind of funny in its own way. The one thing I would say about it is if it's going to give a dwarf Mountain Walk, right? Like the story there is that the dwarf is riding this, so shouldn't it have Mountain Walk on its own as well, right? Like shouldn't it be a 1/1 with Mountain Walk and this ability? It's not like you could use both abilities at the same time, so I don't think it's like unbalanced to do that, but whatever. It's a minor nitpick. The card's hilarious, very funny. It's not particularly strong, obviously, but it's also like, it's whatever. Dwarven Pony was illustrated by Margaret Organ Keene. I'm not sure what style that dwarf is wearing, but it's very funny to me. That's all I got about Dwarven Pony. It's pretty funny. There's nothing really to say here, in my opinion. Alright, then we have Dwarven Sea Clan, another rare. This is a 1-1 that costs 2 in a red. You can tap it. At the end of combat, Dwarven Sea Clan deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Use this ability only if that creature's controller controls any islands. So that's kind of interesting. It's sort of like Desert. The only if they control islands thing isn't so much a balance as it is a flavor thing. But I guess it doesn't bother me too much. I just wish that, like, if they are going to balance around lore, they consider that and, like, maybe do some mechanical balancing in other ways to, like, counteract that somehow. And it feels weird that it can attack, but it can't, like, use its ability unless they have an island. That doesn't really make sense to me. But again, these are all minor nitpicks. It's also a ship and it's a 1-1. Like, that's like a guy, right? Like a soldier, like a human is a 1-1. If they have any sort of martial prowess at all. So you're telling me, like, this thing, like, it's just a tie with one dude versus this boat. Maybe I'm just extra critical on the, like, flavor stuff here because, like, that's kind of all the set really has. And so, like, the fumbles and that feel especially awkward. I don't know. It's not a big deal. This card doesn't really bother me or excite me or anything. I just kind of don't care about it. So I guess we'll move on. This was illustrated by Amy Weber. The art's okay. I like Amy's work. This one is just fine. I don't particularly feel strongly about this card in any aspect. So I guess we'll just move on. Dwarven Trader. Dwarven Trader is a 1-1 that costs a red mana. It's a dwarf. And that's it. This is fine. Obviously, a 1-1 with no abilities for 1 mana is on the weaker side, but this is, like, no different than Mon's Goblin Raider. I think doing something like this is perfectly fine, at least at the time. Obviously, we tend to make creatures at least a little bit better because nobody's going to run this kind of stuff. But at the time, like, if you're trying to build synergies, like, you want someone to be able to play a dwarf deck, so you need, like, some level of dwarves. Having a generic, basic dwarf that's pretty much nothing but really helps to increase the sum of the parts, that kind of stuff is pretty cool. Like, I think Mon's Goblin Raiders and stuff like that, and Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, those are perfectly acceptable cards at the time, especially if you plan on, you know, continuing with these, with the creature type synergies. So this is fine. I don't, there's really nothing to say about it. The art was done by Margaret Organ Keane, and it's very nice. I like her stuff. It's very interesting and kind of different, and I really appreciate that. I kind of don't really have an opinion on which of these two is better, per se. They're both fine. I like looking at them, but I don't care, I guess. But yeah, that's Dwarven Trader. It's a common. I forget if I mentioned that. But I think this one's fine. There's really nothing to say here. Then we have Euron the Relentless. This is a uncommon. It is a 5/2 legend that costs 3 and 2 red mana. So 5 mana in total. Euron the Relentless can attack the turn it comes into play on your side, and you can pay 3 red mana to regenerate it. This is actually pretty decent. 5 mana for a 5/2 with haste. Pretty awesome for red. A 3 mana regenerate is pretty pricey. It's definitely slow by modern standards and isn't, like, super great, but this is good enough. This is pretty cool. This is a card you could play and have it do something. It has immediate impact unless they, you know, counter it or swords it the first turn. And the regeneration is kind of nice. It is kind of slow for a red card, but it's also kind of not because it has haste. It's a 5/2 for 5 mana, which is pretty unheard of at the time. I really like this. I think it's really cool. The haste is huge here. This one would actually be kind of exciting and fun to play. Yeah, I guess that's all I got. This was illustrated by Christopher Rush. Fantastic work, as Christopher always did. This one's very cool. Then we have Evaporate. Evaporate is an uncommon. It's a sorcery. It costs 2 and a red. Evaporate deals 1 damage to each blue creature and white creature. So this really sucks. This card is terrible. Now, if you, it's clarified here in the errata, but it It's and or. So if you had a blue-white creature out, that's not taking two, which is usually how this thing works. Usually, if you see card text similar to this, a multicolored creature would take both. That's not how it works here. So any creature that is white and or blue will take 1 damage, and it's 3 mana in the same set that released Dry Spell. 2 mana black spell that just deals 1 damage to every creature and also to player. So this card is just worse, costs more mana, hits less things, and doesn't even have the advantage of hitting like white blue shit double. It's just weird. Red is the efficient burn color, and this is an uncommon. Dry spell is a common. There's just so many decisions in this set that are just kind of baffling to me. I don't know. It's kind of a shame because I do want to gas this card up because I think it's kind of interesting what it's trying to do, but it's not really. Costs too much mana. It doesn't even have the advantage of like hitting blue and white creatures for more. There's no benefit to this. Not that that would matter in draft specifically because there are no multicolored cards here, but again, like, the set wasn't designed for draft, and there are blue and white multicolored creatures that exist at this point, and some of them are quite popular. I don't know. I guess I got nothing else. The card is bad, and it's bad in a set comparative to other things in the same set. It's just really interesting, right? Like, why is this uncommon more expensive and worse than a black common? I just don't understand the logic of it, personally. That being said, I will take this opportunity to once again say I do think this set is much better than people give it credit for. I do think there are really cool cards here. I don't think this is one of them. This is kind of a shame. But also, it is not a big deal by any stretch. This was illustrated by Alan Rabinowitz, and the art's really cool. I think it's really interesting and fascinating and kind of unsettling in a pretty cool way. It's nice art, but the card is confounding to me. Speaking of confounding, here's Heartwolf. This is a rare. It's a 2/2 that costs 3 and a red. That's pretty good for this set. First strike, hell yeah. And then tap. Target dwarf gains first strike and gets +2/+0 until end of turn. If that dwarf leaves play this turn, bury Heartwolf. Use this ability only when attack or defense is announced. Yup. Thanks for making me feel like I'm making meaningful decisions here. So, this card is So first off, this card is pretty okay. It's certainly not great, but in a limited, this is kind of alright. It's kind of cool that it, like, calls out dwarfs if you're doing something with dwarfs, but, like, all the dwarfs are, like, fucking 1/1s, so I guess it gives it first strike too, so it's fine. There's so much discouraging you from using this ability, because it has to, like, say, if that dwarf leaves, you also lose this, and then it also says you can only do this when attack or defense is announced. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the use this ability only when attack or defense is announced is fine. That doesn't bother me too much. Like, I know I was complaining about the restrictions placed on cards. That one generally has some purpose. It's just, and it's not even necessarily that the extra text is, like, bad or ruins the card or isn't a good balance decision. It's just the psychology of, like, everything in this set that is, like, an ability is just so exhausting to read through. Because it front loads you with the, like, oh, here's the cool thing, and then it's just no, and no, and no, and by the time you're done, like, you don't even care anymore. I think that's the problem with a lot of these. Just the way they're written, the how much, like, downside, and, like, it's just, I said it before, but it's just so heavy-handed. I mean, I guess this is a 2/2 with first strike for 4 mana, but again, we have 2/2 first strikers for 2 mana. Which are, again, overstated, but come on, man. There's just downside upon downside upon downside slammed onto all of these. And it's so egregious for the rares. Those are the cards that are supposed to be exciting. Like, these are the cards that, like, that's the card that people read and they're like, holy shit. I don't know, dude. It feels like that's not the case in this set. The best cards have all been commons. Memory Lapse, Merchant Scroll, Dry Spell. They're all 2 mana, do a lot for 2 mana. Fucking have one in every pack. And then like all the rares are these things that are like, oh man, maybe if I play against my friend's little brother, I can do this. This set is wild. But there are some really cool cards in this set, and even the cards that suck are kind of interesting and cool. Like this is a fun idea. It's kind of neat, but I didn't. I read it and then I'm like, I never want to play this card, ever. I never want to even bother trying. And it's just there's a lot of cards like that in this set, at least to me. Hopefully some of these cards are gonna get interesting again here soon. The red ones have been pretty shit, honestly. Alright, next we have Iron Claw Curse. This is a rare. It is an enchant creature that costs 1 red mana. Target creature gets -0/-1. That creature cannot be assigned to block any creature with power greater than or equal to the toughness of the creature Iron Claw Curse enchants. Alright, yeah. So obviously this is inspired by Iron Claw Orc. It just basically turns something into an Iron Claw Orc, which is kind of fun. But this is pretty cool. One, it's a single mana enchant creature, which is really interesting. So like if you put this on something, it goes -1. So you can use this to remove a 1/1, which is really cool. There's plenty of 1/1s in this set. This is nice removal. But you can also combine this with, what is it, like Baka's Curse or whatever the fuck it was called. That does 2 damage for each of these on somebody. With this and that card, that's 3 damage to any creature you put one of these on. That's actually pretty cool. That's pretty inspired. I really like that. That kind of stuff is like, well, maybe someone did give a shit. Maybe someone did have some ideas of like these cards interacting with each other in interesting ways. There's more of that in this set than I expected. There's also a lot of really bad, very, I guess, interesting and very confusing decisions. But this set is not like devoid of good design. And I think this is one of them. I don't know that you should have this at a rare for like any reason. I think this should not be at a rare, but whatever. It is pretty efficient removal in this set specifically, just because of all the 1/1s running around. But it also is kind of just a weaker immolation with less. I guess not really, because this also does different things, kind of. It is also very similar to weakness, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I guess that's all I got here. I like this one. I think this one is pretty cool. I wouldn't have made it a rare, but I think this one is at least interesting, and I think this one is fairly playable, at least in the environment. And depending on like what old school meta you had, like this could be efficient. I mean, this anywhere that weakness isn't efficient enough, this would also not be efficient enough. So it's not super likely that this would be decent, but it's possible. And I think that's kind of cool. This was illustrated by Dennis Detwiller, and the art's really cool. I like it a lot. I think it's really neat. But yeah, hell yeah, we got a win. This is a cool card in my opinion. Next we have Joven, or Jovin, or whatever. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. This is another common legend. It is a 3/3 that costs 3 and 2 red mana. And you can pay 3 red mana, tap it, and destroy target non-creature artifact. And so this is kind of the other half of Chandler, and that's kind of neat, kind of fun. That being said, I do think Chandler is the more likely to be useful, specifically in a limited of this set. There are obviously non-creature artifacts in this set. Some of them are even kind of decent, right? Like hitting serrated arrows with Joven would be pretty good, but beyond that, I don't know. It's just not going to come up as often. I guess it's also a little confusing to me why they break artifacts. Like, why can't like these two just kind of be reskins of Aladdin, a different version of that? Wouldn't stealing artifacts be more in the story? I don't know. I guess that's a minor nitpick. Joven isn't a powerful card by any stretch. It's too expensive. Its ability is too niche and also too expensive. I guess the ability itself is not like super duper niche, but it is quite pricey for what you're getting, right? Like you could just cast a Shatter. Obviously, this is repeatable and Shatter isn't, but hell, Shatterstorm will blow up all of them, and that's 4 mana. So yeah, I don't know. The card's really fucking funny. Joven and Chandler are just really fucking hilarious characters, and I think the story is better for them. And I think these cards add a level of like personality to the set that's just really fucking funny. I just wish they were a little bit better. It's the same case where like all of the like character cards, all the legendary creatures are just quite bad, and it's just kind of disappointing. I guess that's all I have on Joven. This was illustrated by Douglas Schuler. The art's fantastic. I think it's hilarious. It's so good. It's like a Kiss fan. Or Nightman. He's not going for laughs. He's going for gasps. It brings me joy. I like the card. It's not particularly good though. All right, then we have Orcish Mine. This is an uncommon. It is an enchant land that costs 1 and 2 red mana. When Orcish Mine comes into play, put 3 ore counters on it. During your upkeep, and whenever target land becomes tapped, remove an ore counter from Orcish Mine. When the last ore counter is removed from Orcish Mine, destroy the land Orcish Mine enchants. Orcish Mine deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Okay, yeah, sure. This is kind of interesting, right? It feels like they're trying to fix Stone Rain, but again, this kind of stuff falls flat when you're also currently printing Stone Rain. Like, Stone Rain's in 4th edition. I mean, you're still printing Stone Rain, right? You're still printing Strip Mine. Alright, so this card on its own, I kind of like the idea. If you think that it's not fun to just blow the fuck up outer lands, and you want people to at least have some chance to like do something with their lands, this is kind of neat. It's a little bit complicated, a lot to track, but like not too bad. And it's just kind of a neat idea. But again, it falls flat when you're still printing Stone Rain. So like, what is the reason to play this? It's just, there's so many of these like design decisions that I think are fine if you like decide, you know what, this is going to be a different environment, right? Like this is going to be a limited environment. These cards probably aren't going to be super good in extended or in tournaments. That's fine, but they're going to have a place where they thrive. And in that way, like stuff like this is fine, but that's not what that was. That's not what this is at all. In fact, like tournament players are required to play some of these cards, which I think can be interesting, but so many of these cards are just worse than things that came before, and then other cards are not. So, like, why would you ever play this over Stone Rain if you wanted that effect? And if you wanted more than that effect, like, play Sinkhole or Blight. It's just kind of baffling. Like, again, I don't think there's a problem with, like, lowering power down and stuff like that. But you're printing the same cards at the same time. It's just baffling to me. It just feels like pretty much everyone that had a hand in this project had a completely different idea of what they wanted to do, and they just fought with each other about it. I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't make sense to me. Oh well. I do like Orcish Mine though. I do think it's interesting, kind of fun. This was illustrated by Kaya Folio, and the art's pretty awesome. Definitely not one of her better works. I am a big fan of Kaya's work, and a lot of it's really cool, but this one certainly is not bad. It's nice to see a Kaya piece. We only have 2 left. Next is Retribution, which is an uncommon. It's a sorcery. It costs 2 and 2 red mana. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by an opponent. Bury one of those creatures and put a -1/-1 counter on the other. That opponent chooses which creature is buried. This is really cool. This is a really interesting card. I think I would have like pushed to have this be 3 mana, so it's like not just way worse than everything else, but I do think this is really interesting. Generally, cards that let your opponent choose are worse for you because they'll just choose what's better for them. But that does mean that there's more strategy into when you play this. So these kind of cards are pretty interesting, and giving opponents choice is definitely like, as a player, you don't want as many cards to do that, but as like a game designer, I think you do kind of want some cards to do that. I think it really helps with the interaction side of it, where people won't feel like their choices are invalidated if they make some of the choices of the card. And that's, you know, you don't want people to feel like their decisions don't matter. So I think like this I think is a really cool idea. I do think it costs too much mana, but I do think it's really interesting. I like that it's a -1/-1 counter and not damage too. So like this does permanently lower something, right? So like even if they have like a 2/2 and a 5/5, right? Obviously that unless that 2/2 is super fucking good, they're gonna, bury the 2/2 and keep the 5/5. But now that 5/5 is a 4/4, which is quite a bit more manageable, or at least a little bit more manageable. So I think this card is cool and interesting, and for limited specifically, it's fine. Like it's costing is fine for limited, but I think this could have potentially, like at 3 mana, I think this is kind of interesting and potentially playable. At least more likely to end up in kitchen table. Yeah, I think this one is cool. Again, like same criticism as most of them. It costs too much mana, but other than that, I think this one is very interesting and a very cool idea. This one was illustrated by Mark Teeden. Big Mark Teeden fan, as I've said. I like this art. It's very cool. I guess that's really all I have to say on Retribution, though. I like this card. I think it's awesome. And then we have Winter Sky. Good old Winter Sky. Winter Sky is a rare. It is a sorcery that costs 1 red mana. Flip a coin. Target opponent calls heads or tails while coin is in the air. If the flip ends up in your favor, Winter Sky deals 1 damage to each creature and player. Otherwise, each player draws a card. This card is super fucking interesting. It's not particularly good. It's so random and both effects are kind of really different. I guess I probably don't have to explain why random is not good for consistency in a card game. Random is certainly fun and interesting, but it doesn't generally make your strategy more likely to succeed. This card is super interesting and fun and kind of cool on a casual level. This is more of like a commander card. It's not that it's useless, right? Because interestingly, this is kind of like cheaper dry spell. If it goes in your favor, you just cast dry spell for 1 red mana, which is pretty decent if that's what you need. The problem is like it's removal that doesn't guarantee that it removes anything. And each player drawing a card, you get one too, so this replaces itself if it doesn't work, which is kind of cool. It's a chaos card, right? Like it's like you play this and just shit happens, and you can either capitalize on shit happening or you're just here to watch it burn. And that's fine, and that's cool, and I like this card for being that kind of design. I think it's interesting. I think it's something to think about in a way that's pretty much harmless. This card isn't doing anything anywhere. And both are like, it's sort of like Mana Clash in a way where it's just fucking wild, crazy fun, but like way more reserved than Mana Clash. Mana Clash could take 20 fucking minutes to resolve, depending on what, like, how it played out. Whereas this is a coin flip and it's over. So I think it's neat, and I think it's kind of a more pulled back version of that chaos, to the point where it doesn't annoy the fuck out of anyone who's not the chaos player. Because that's the real, like, if you're going to do these chaosy cards and stuff like that, the real problem with them is that they're so fucking annoying to resolve that anyone that is slightly annoyed by the concept is just gonna fucking hate it. And like, you only ever see those kind of cards in like Commander, usually, because that's where people can troll more easily. And the thing is the chaos player is probably not even trying to troll. They're just trying to have a fun time in a way that they want to have fun. So I think cards like this, where they don't, aren't super annoying to resolve, are kind of a good way to scratch that itch a little bit. So I think this is a pretty inspired design, even if I'm not sure what the intention of the card is. Like, it does, like, logically, it feels like it's a cheap dry spell that does that, but because it's so cheap, occasionally it doesn't do that. And the danger of it is, if it fucks up, they're also going to get a card. Like, you're going to get this replaced, but they're going to go +1. But yeah, I guess that's all I have about the red cards. Winter Sky here was illustrated by Mike Kimball, and the art's pretty cool. It's not my favorite, but it's pretty. Alright, well, that's the red cards. I guess they're okay. There really isn't much here. I'm not even sure how to describe it. I think the ratios are pretty good, as in, like, how many creatures are in red, how many damage spells. It has some land destruction, and even a red stack style piece, which I always love to see. The legends are kind of interesting, and Euron the Relentless might be the most playable red card, which is pretty cool. It's nice to see a legend be somewhat decent. And beyond that, the red legends are really fucking funny, which counts for something in my opinion. Some of the ideas here are pretty interesting as well. Winter Sky is pretty funny and interesting. Retribution is a really cool idea, but it should be cheaper in my opinion. That's not really unique to Retribution though. I guess the Minotaurs are pretty funny as well. Overall, I say the red cards are the most disappointing so far. It is pretty close with the black cards, but I think the red cards are a little worse. It isn't all bad, but in my opinion, even the strengths of this set don't really shine through in the red cards specifically. I guess the art kicks ass, but as far as the story and the lore go, I didn't really feel like the red cards did too much world building, or rather, it felt like most of the world building in the red cards is inconsequential. Not that it's a bad thing to have world building that doesn't really push the narrative along, that's kind of what world building is, but with 25 cards per color, it feels like the set doesn't really have the space for what it's trying to do. That's just a personal feeling, of course, and some of these cards are genuinely interesting, and they all look really nice. Still bad game pieces, but that really shouldn't be surprising by now. Anyway, that's all I have for the red cards. We're going to be tackling the green cards next, and it should be fun on a bun. But for now, you can like the video if you liked it. You can subscribe if you give a shit, but either way, I hope you have a magical day. Thank you for watching.